thought I'd take another look at the Ukraine-Russia war today, look at some comments that have been made by Lord Dannatt recently on troop numbers, and listen to what he has to say. Then have a look at Keir Starmer and some of the things that he's been talking about, as well as the Defence Secretary, John Healey, and some of the ways that this is being positioned in the media. But the message from Labour is completely incoherent, and generally speaking, the message being broadcasted to the British people is one of hysteria. I don't feel threatened at all by Russia. You may feel threatened by Russia. You may have a better idea of the capabilities of Russia. But as for Russia threatening our waters and our skies, as Keir Starmer's again repeated that line this week, I just don't buy it. But first of all, here's Lord Dannatt, and he's going to give you the army perspective on this. He's a voice to be respected. He knows what he's talking about. And so we'll listen to what he's got to say first of all.
There's going to be a lot of ambition set out in this Strategic Defence Review, much of it very good, much of it describing what we need to do to face the threats to our security. But the big issue, and this is what Kate was pressing Luke Pollard on so correctly, is that just moving to 2.5% of GDP by 2027 does not cut the mustard in any shape or form. And this rather vague commitment to move to 3% by the end of the next Parliament, 2034, I mean, it just doesn't stack up. It's a little bit like saying in 1938 to Adolf Hitler, please don't attack us till 1946 because we're not going to be ready. Well, frankly, if we'd behaved like that, we wouldn't be speaking English this morning, would we? If we cut to the chase on this, the number one responsibility of any government is to look after the security of the nation. They like to say we want to be strong at home and strong abroad, and that's absolutely right. So she's got to find some more money. Her problem is going to be, or the question she's got to answer is, can she rely on that coming from growth? Can she afford to borrow some more? And I'm afraid I'm doubtful on both of those. But what we absolutely must do is improve our defence capability so that we deter aggression and don't have to fight a war. How many times one has actually tried to make that argument in the past? Much better to take a little bit of pain now to deter further aggression, principally from Putin's Russia, than have to find the enormous cost of fighting a war at some stage in the not too distant future. Deterrence always caps the awful possibility of having to actually fight a war.
Yeah, so if you want peace, you prepare for war, so the old saying goes, and it's been that way forever and a day. No one's going to attack you if you look strong, and that's relatively straightforward, and I think what Lord Dannatt was really positioning there was, look, let's just get things back up to an even keel and it'll be alright. But as for this posturing by Keir Starmer, and we're going to look at this message that's coming out where on the one hand he looks like he's trying to do a rendition of Winston Churchill, but on the other hand he kind of won't increase any defence spending. It's a really incoherent message, as most of the messages coming out of Labour are. But it is in the middle of another thing that's going on with the Chagos, and I have got a very short clip for you here. I did think it was worth reminding ourselves as we're talking about defence, because this is a highly important topic, and this opening from a speech that Keir Starmer made was just a peachy statement.
Good afternoon. A few moments ago, I signed a deal to secure the joint UK-US base on Diego Garcia. This is absolutely vital for our defence and intelligence, and therefore for the safety and security of the British people. The full assessment of why this is so important is highly classified, but I want to speak as frankly as I can. The strategic location of this base is of the utmost significance to Britain. From deploying aircraft to defeat terrorists in Iraq and Afghanistan, to anticipating threats in the Red Sea and the Indo-Pacific, the base is right at the foundation of our security and safety at home.
So it's quite an obvious choice, really, to give it to the Chinese Communist Party. The best part about that speech there, and it did drone on for quite a while, so I've spared you that, the best part was, well, the reason that we give it away to China was essentially that's a need to know basis, and right now you don't need to know. But the only problem with that is that there's lots of people read those documents all over the Houses of Parliament, and they all disagree, and they say there's nothing in there, that the International Court of Justice had no jurisdiction over a Commonwealth country, and Keir Starmer and his buddies were worrying about colonialism. And so, that being the case, this is how Keir Starmer approaches defence of our country. On the one hand, he's talking about defence, while on the other hand, he's pandering to this woke pandemonium of liberal human rights lawyers. And of course, to move on to something else that he said. So this is a much more recent clip of Keir Starmer talking here about moving us to a massive war readiness. And I found this to be exceptionally strange. I have no idea what prompts him to say these things or why he does these things, but you may have a better idea than I do. But this is the type of stuff that comes out of his mouth regularly.
We are moving to warfighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready, to deliver peace through strength. Every part of society, every citizen of this country has a role to play. Because we have to recognise that things have changed. In the world of today, the front line, if you like, is here. The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate, and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War. We face war in Europe, new nuclear risks, daily cyber attacks, growing Russian aggression in our waters, menacing our skies, their reckless actions driving up the cost of living here at home, creating economic pain and hitting working people the hardest.
Moving to a war footing? What's he on about? I am frequently baffled by this man and the stuff that he comes out with. I don't know if you caught the people standing in the background there, kind of looking on, going, what's he talking about? I mean, we're not at war. This whole in Ukraine and Russia fighting over, control of that territory. This has been going on since time immemorial. Well over a millennia, these countries have been fighting in that part of the world. Do I believe that Russia wants to take over Europe? No, I don't. I've never bought that. But there are some elements of our media who are hilariously bought into this. And I've got a clip here for you of LBC, and perhaps you might like this little speech here.
It seems mad. But of course it's not mad, because today's Defence Review is about one thing and one thing only: credibility. We need to be able to persuade potential enemies, the Russians in particular, that we are too dangerous to attack. Now, that is probably not the case today, but perhaps within a few years it will be. I have got nothing against the Russians as a people. They are brave, cultured, and hardy. But domination by the Kremlin dictatorship would destroy everything that is valuable in this country. We couldn't speak or hear freely. The brave would be imprisoned, and the rest of us would live in perpetual fear. For my money, and it is my money just like it's your money, I'm prepared to spend more on weird, scary things I hope turn out to be useless in order to keep that possibility away from my children.
Now, it's very difficult to understand whether he believes that Russia is about to attack us. There's always cyber attacks going on between all countries in the world, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about armed war. And here, this man here, Andrew Marr, actually believes that Russia is going to be attacking the United Kingdom. And I just don't buy it. And I think it's almost farcical to believe that all of this is happening. These people talking absolute garbage in our media. Keir Starmer riling people up, saying we need to be on a wartime footing. Andrew Marr talking about the Russians are coming for us soon. I mean, this is all rather ridiculous. And in the middle of it, we have strange messaging. So for all that Keir Starmer's banging on and on about moving to a wartime footing, he hasn't changed anything to do with defence spending. He's going to restate his existing pledge to spend 2.5% by 2027. And now he has an ambition to hit 3% by 2034. And as we saw earlier in the video with Lord Dannatt, this just isn't going to cut the mustard. This isn't going to be scaring anybody, and this is all rather ridiculous. So on the one hand, you've got this messaging where you've got Keir Starmer moving us to a wartime footing, saying there's going to be new munitions factories and all of this. But on the other side, he's not increasing defence spending. So what exactly is he on about? And in addition to that, you've got episodes like this. So we've got this LBC where John Healey is talking to Nick Ferrari, and the whole thing just drifts into absolute farce.
Also talk about the nuclear submarines and to develop up to 12 new. What does up to mean? That could mean 1.
Well, these are long-term decisions, first of all.
How many is it, Secretary of State? I mean, up to is I could lose up to 30 pounds of weight, but I might lose 6 ounces. This is the reality. So what does up to mean?
Well, currently we have 7 attack submarines in our attack submarine fleet. We're looking at the new generation of attack subs.
And how many will that be, Secretary of State?
That will allow us to grow the number of attack submarines and meet our NATO commitments in the future.
So if we talk a little bit about the submarines, I understand that we're going to have this AUKUS class commissioning starting sometime towards the end of the 2030s. How much does each AUKUS sub cost?
At the moment, we're designing and looking at how the components put together. You say yourself it's 2030s into the 2040s before the first of those submarines.
I know, but you must have an idea. So we don't know how many, and we don't know the individual cost. Can I buy a car from you?
No, look, to be quite frank with you, we can't tell the precise cost of what those.
But you must have a working estimate.
We're doing that now, but most importantly,
so you've commissioned submarines and you don't know the cost
now, so that we can build them in the future.
So we don't know how many submarines. We don't know the cost.
So what do we have? Well, in short, I think all of those clips really highlight what we have. We have an incoherent message coming out from number 10, which is trying to put the whole country, scare the pants off everyone, talking about Russia invading our waters and our skies, talking about we need to be ready to go to all-out war. On the other hand, of course, you've got the fact that we're not increasing defence spending at all, and so everything that Keir Starmer said in that speech was complete rubbish. You've got him sending ministers out, like the Defence Secretary, talking absolute rubbish on the radio. This is a completely incoherent plan. You've got the liberal media, LBC and Andrew Marr, talking absolute rubbish about we're going to war. And when you stand back and you look at the full display that's going on outside of what I showed you with Lord Dannatt, his message is pretty consistent, and he just tells it from an army perspective. Army men always want more money to be put on spending to deter people that are going to mess around with you, and I agree with that. I think we should just go to 3% immediately. Just let's move to 3%. Donald Trump wants us to go to 3%. Other countries, a couple of countries in Europe, I should say, are moving to 3%, particularly those around Ukraine. And Europe is moving very slowly, considering all of the tough talk that they've got going on. So I just think, look, let's just go to 3%. Let's not talk about it. Let's just do it. And let's the economy work itself out. Perhaps we should stop spending money on housing illegal migrants in our country, or stopping the people that are flowing into our country almost incessantly. And, last Saturday we spent another £50 million on housing people for the first year and looking after them. Perhaps we could get the money from there. I'm not sure about that. I'm not in control or have the keys to power. But you start to see, when you actually stand back and look at all of this stuff, you see the incoherent messaging. You see how we're positioning ourselves on the world stage. And this Labour Party, they are a national embarrassment, trying to scare the pants off ordinary working class people with this rubbish about Russia in our waters and in our skies again. I mean, it just beggars belief. And why, oh why, can they not just come out with a coherent message? Okay, you want to bang on about Russia, they're coming to kill us, okay, well, that's your opinion. Well, move to 3%. Well, not just yet, because the economy's in a bit of a bad state, didn't you know? And, that's even forgetting about this Chagos disaster, because I think that, more than anything else, shows the calibre of this government and how much they really care about the defence of this nation. They handed over a strategic, defensive, capable place that is very important to not just the region but to the world, for the sake of woke and colonialism. Keir Starmer doesn't care about the defence of this country. He's a joke. Thanks very much for your time.